This map shows the railroads of South Australia in about 1950. You can see a very extensive covering of the state, the mixture of 3 different gauges. Coming to Adelaide, we can see that a lot of the lines are running in the north-south direction because of the fact that the Adelaide hills run in the north-south direction and become a real barrier for the movement of cars and trucks and trains across those hills. This is a close-up now of the railway lines which go from Murray Bridge at this point. The railway line has to go through a 4% decline to get down the Hills Face zone and goes around a long curve, and here at Mitcham it becomes more reasonable level again, and then through to here. Now it turns out that between Melbourne and Perth only half of the freight is coming to Adelaide, the other half is actually going Melbourne to Perth, and all this freight is forced to pass through Adelaide CBD. The state government of South Australia sold off all of these railway lines to the Commonwealth in the Don Dunstan period, and the state of South Australia only retained the railway lines here in the metropolitan area of Adelaide. All the other lines were sold to the Commonwealth government, who then on-sold some to other private enterprises. In 2010, the Adelaide Rail Freight Movement Study final report was published. This was a report created at the request of the Commonwealth Government and the State Government of South Australia, and they came up with a number of alternatives. It is suggested that the option which follows this green line would be the one which is most beneficial. We can see that there used to be a railway line from Monarto South Junction through to Sudan. That was closed and the lines taken and used for the Pitchy Ritchie Railway. So the tracks have been taken up, but the right-of-way still exists. The proposal that the Adelaide Rail Freight Movement Study is suggesting that they have a right-of-way similar to this one, which goes through and joins onto the line near Kapunda and comes down to Roseworthy. Then a new line goes from Roseworthy across to Wells, so that the trains can avoid the Adelaide Metropolitan Area by going around it as a bypass, and then they could go on to Perth. Equally, the trains from Melbourne could come in this way, which means that all the problems which occur here in the Adelaide Hills could be stopped. 2 major problems are, there's been a number of occasions where brake and other hot metal coming from trains has started bushfires in the Adelaide Hills. The most recent one destroyed a number of houses. Luckily no one was killed in that one. The other danger, of course, is the derailing of trains, and near Belair recently there was a major derailment. Again, no one was killed on that, but a huge amount of damage occurred. And of course all the noise that occurs as these trains try and go through here. This line through here is a single track, and so you need to have passing loops so the east and the trains in each direction can pass one another. The other problem is there are about 10 tunnels through here, and these tunnels would need to be duplicated in many cases because a single track is not very efficient. What's happened is that in Adelaide, the major freight intermodals have been shifted to a point just here near the Adelaide Embra Air Force Base, and so this now is the major point for freight intermodal interstate transport of freight. The other problem too is that road traffic follows a similar route through Adelaide Hills, and so it's suggested that both road and rail could follow this green corridor and at this point join onto the Gawler bypass road and come in this way, while the trains can go along this particular route, or they could come down here. The trains don't have to go across there, they could come down here, and then you could have a crossover point there. The study came up with 5 options. 1, do nothing, use the existing alignment. Option 2 is a northern bypass north of Truro. Option 3 is a northern bypass south of Truro. Option 4 is a southern alignment, which involved building a tunnel, the longest railway tunnel in Australia, which basically passes under the Mount Bold Reservoir. And the 5th option is to upgrade the existing alignment. The problem with upgrading the existing alignment is that the area is a very complicated geology to take it through the Adelaide Hills, and so by using these northern bypass systems you take account of the geology of the area, and whilst it might be a slightly greater distance, the functionality is improved.